So this time, I think we'll put a little bit more focus on how can we practice and some of the questions that may be coming to your mind, does it give enough protein, or can I have all the required nutrients in this diet? Do I need to take supplements? Things like what about milk, especially what about A2 milk? Can I use some oils, cold pressed oils? Some of these may be questions which may be there in your mind. As also in terms of some recipes which are around, what you can start using to follow this diet, and some other support structures also, like there are some retreats going on, things like that, which I can just give you an introduction to. So that's what I thought we will do this time. Prashant, can we start now or should we wait for a little while? Hello, Prashant, can you hear me?
I think we can start. Go ahead.
We can start?
Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, we'll focus on the three, what, why, and how of the diet. So Prashant, if we can move to the next slide. All of you also can see the slides, by the way. Can they see, Prashant?
Yes.
So if the information is there, some information like some links and all have provided in the slide itself. If you want, you can take it down when we go to that slide. So let me start with the what is WFPB diet? WFPB stands for Whole Food Plant-Based Diet. So there are two parts to it. One is it is plant-based. Secondly, it is whole food. Both parts are important. It starts with plant-based and then, of course, you try to make it whole food. So let me start with what is not included. No animal foods or foods originating from animals of any kind. So, everybody will straight away understand meat and fish because everybody knows these are animal products. But there is a trend I've seen of late of a lot of vegetarians becoming eggetarians. So egg is considered okay or kind of, okay within the vegetarian diet. It may be okay within the vegetarian diet, but it's a strict no-no within WFPB because eggs are completely animal products and same characteristics as meat and as meat in terms of the protein structures and fats, etc. Same thing with dairy products, whether it's the milk or any of the milk derivatives, whether it's butter, buttermilk, ghee, etc., etc. They're all no-no. So anything which originates from animals is a strict no-no. No processed foods. Now here, it is to the best extent possible. I mean, ideally it should be zero processed foods, but all of us living in a modern society, it may not be always possible to exclude 100%, but to the greatest extent possible, eliminating processed foods. But what is more important here is to understand the definition of processing. I'm sure many of you will straightforward understand and relate to the one definition, which is, what is available as, let's say, Ruffles Lays or Pepsi or, chocolate in a wrapper, which is available. That I think everybody understands and relates to that, these are bad. But processing is strictly by definition in WFPB means stripping the whole food of its natural balance and converting a multi-nutrient food into a predominantly single nutrient food. This is a very, very important thing to understand because when nature produces something, it produces it in a certain balance and those are whole foods. For example, take a coconut. Coconut has, of course, the fat content in it, but it's not just the fat content. It has lots of fiber. It has lots of different, the minerals and vitamins and micronutrients and many other things it has got. But when we convert that coconut into coconut oil, it becomes predominantly fat. All the fiber is gone 100% and it becomes predominantly fat. So, here you are stripping a whole food of its natural balance and converting into a primarily single nutrient food. So all polished grains are in that category. Refined flours, sugar, and all oils are in that category. Even supplements, things like vitamin supplements, protein supplements, fatty acid like the omega-3 supplements, all of them come in that category. Because what you're consuming is not whole food with its balance, but certain things which derived from that, certain single nutrient derived from that. And only, I mean, now these are the, what is excluded and what is included. Only plant-based whole foods. So whole fruits, vegetables, greens, pulses and beans and lentils, whole grains, nuts and seeds, sprouts. When I say whole grains, it means unpolished. So white rice is not a whole grain. Unpolished rice is a whole grain. Mostly whole. Raw is the whole food at its natural best. When you take anything raw, I mean, a grain cannot be taken raw, but let's say a fruit or a vegetable, when it's taken raw, is a whole food at its natural best, because that's how nature has created it. It has got all the ingredients, what the nature has created as is. Now, when you cook it, there is some amount of processing that happens. Of course, it is not possible to eliminate cooking. Definitely, it is required also, because you can't have pulses or grains without cooking. So what we recommend is mostly try to have whole wherever possible. And, what you cook, try and make it minimally processed. So things like use jaggery instead of sugar, coconut milk instead of coconut oil. Coconut milk is also processing. One step you have gone from coconut itself. But it's okay, because we can't make 100% purity. We'll have to make some compromises. But these are acceptable compromises. Cooking is also a kind of processing, as it generates high heat and could change the natural composition of whole foods, including its nutrient composition. In cooking, slower cooking or lower flame cooking, lower heat cooking like steaming, baking, solar cooking, slow cookers, etc. are very good. Then things like pressure cooking should be avoided. Reheating should be avoided, because the more number of times you reheat, more the nutrient loss will happen. And frying, deep frying and microwaving is a strict no-no. Here, when we say difference between cooked and raw food, there's one other difference I want to bring in. One is in terms of the nutrient composition that could change. But second, equally important, is the life force. Food is not just a composition of nutrients. One of my engineering friends, a science guy, was telling, if after all what we need is so much of protein, so much of minerals, so much of vitamins, so much of whatever, different nutrients. So why can't we put all those nutrients together in a lab and make it into some kind of a pill, which has all the required nutrients that this thing, and take it? Can't it solve the problem? No, what is lacking there is a life force. In any living food, what we call as living food, which is your, food which is raw, has a life force in it. And this can actually be seen in the naked eye through Kirlian photography. In Kirlian photography, it captures the actual, radiation coming out of that whole food, live food. And as it is cooked more and more and more, that glow, that rays coming out of it keeps diminishing. And finally, it dies out totally. So, that part is also important. That is why, to the extent possible, we are saying raw food, but not 100% raw. Definitely, you can have all the cooked foods possible, whatever traditional preparations you can continue to have. Just avoid multiple reheatings, avoid oil, and avoid, pressure cooking. Sometimes pressure cooking you may need to do, fine. Extent possible, avoid. Solar cooking is excellent. We have recently started it. We bought a solar cooker. The taste also is totally different. Nutrient composition anyhow is different, but even the tastes much better. Your dals, your rice, everything tastes much better. It's a vegan plus diet. No animal products is a similarity. No processed food is a big difference. Yeah, Prashant, we can move on. Why WFPB? First of all, let me start with the grim reality that we see all around us. 7 out of the 10 top causes of death, as listed by the ICMR in India or CDC in the US or WHO across the world, things like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, or kidney disease. Many of these are strongly and irrefutably linked to diet and lifestyle. 7 out of 10. The remaining, like accidents or suicides, etc., have no connection. Or some nutritional diseases in poor countries like diarrhea, etc., have no connection to this kind of issues of diet and lifestyle. Of course, different connection is there of hygiene, etc. But 7 out of 10 are linked to diet and lifestyle. Second important point is chronic diseases. When I say chronic diseases, I mean diseases like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, many of these diseases, which once the onset happens, this cannot be cured. Whatever modern medicine offers is only symptomatic treatment to reduce the symptoms of that and keep it supposedly in control. But your drugs will keep on increasing. Not only they won't stop, the dosage will keep increasing. More and more stronger and stronger drugs you will move towards. So they are perpetual diseases once they start. They're chronic. Okay. These are also reaching epidemic proportions. So, they are spreading literally like your COVID kind of an epidemic disease. In fact, much more than that. Today, you don't hear of a household anywhere in the country, rural or urban, which doesn't have at least one of these chronic diseases within itself. And other thing you see is they're striking the victims ever younger. The more and more cases you come across now, at 30, somebody getting a heart attack, 35, somebody is being diagnosed with cancer, diabetes, even younger than 30, by in the 20s, late 20s, people having diabetes, etc. And situation is only getting grimmer by the day. It's no way improving. Why I'm taking US example here is simply US is the leader and all of us are following in their footsteps. In our diet, in our lifestyle, in our economy, in everything, we are trying to, take US as the dream, which we want to catch up with. If we want to become a developed country, as they say, we have to become like US in terms of per capita consumption, in terms of, whatever other things it may mean. So if you take US example, autism in children used to be between 2 to 4 children out of 10,000 in 1960s. 2 to 4 children in 10,000 in 1960s to today it stands at 1 in 36. Today is not today, but let's say a few years back, 2 to 3 years back when this data point was taken, and is expected to reach 1 in 3 by 2035. Just imagine a society where 1 in 3 newborn children are autistic. Here, autistic is taken from a broad spectrum definition to include all kinds of mental disabilities. It can be learning disabilities, it can be classic autism, it can be mental retardation, all of these are included. But a society where 1 in 3 have autistic problems is a sick society, is a society beyond redemption. And all of us are moving in that direction. By 2035, every 1 in 2 adults is expected to have some kind of cancer in the US. Today, it's the number 2 cause of death, and that is where it's headed. Similar scenarios unfolding vis-a-vis heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune, and so on. While, of course, this trend is the most pronounced in the US because they have been following this lifestyle pretty early on, all of us who are catching up and moving in that same direction are moving pretty fast. Especially China and India are in some areas even overtaking the US. For example, classic example is diabetes. Today, 49% of the world's diabetic burden lies in India. India is considered the diabetic capital of the world. And it's there across villages as well as urban centers, rich families, poor families, young and old, middle-aged, everywhere it is there. Significant similar trend you can see with regard to heart disease, with regard to cancer. I mean, I live in a pretty interior village. Very recently, we had some 40-year-old guy dying of heart disease. You hear of cancer cases. These things were unheard of in the villages. Now it's becoming pretty common. If any of you want to go more into detail of this epidemic of chronic diseases, I've covered this in my blog in detail. It's the heading of the blog is An Epidemic of Chronic Diseases, The Real Threat, Part 2. This is there in saveranaturalist.com/blog. All whatever blogs I'm going to talk about are there in saveranaturalist.com/blog.
We can share it like after the meeting is done. We can share a few links by email.
So, yeah, you can move on, Prashant. Yeah. Chronic disease and diet. More than a century of independent, peer-reviewed scientific research points to an unmistakable and definitive link between chronic diseases and a diet rich in animal foods and processed foods. I mean, there are so many studies dating back as early 19th century to even the very, very recent, which show a very, very, very clear link between chronic diseases and our diet. I mean, some of the early studies I've cited here, one was done during World War I, post-World War I, and other one was done during post-World War II. In both these cases, the first one was in Scotland, second one was in one of the Scandinavian countries. I forget the name, but one of the Scandinavian countries, where essentially what happened in the second case, once the Germans invaded, all the livestock they took away. They took away, I think it's in Norway, they took away the sheep, the goat, the cows, the chicken, the ducks, all the livestock was taken away by the Germans, saying that this is required for the German army. So people were left with only plants to eat. There was nothing else. And you can see a drastic drop happening in heart disease, all through the Second World War. And come end of the Second World War, and all the livestock comes back, the graph starts climbing up steeply back again, heart disease. World War I was diabetes. Same thing with regard to diabetes. All the fats and the meats disappear from their diet, butter, everything disappears because the shortages induced by World War I in Scotland. And primarily they're left with eating plants. The diabetes nosedives within a span of that World War period. And come the end of the war, back again with a boom. Another interesting study is a migrant study on heart disease by Robertson Cato and Rhodes in 1960s. Here is essentially, they took, the Japanese, they say are, many people say Japanese are not genetically prone to heart disease. That is why they don't get heart disease. They took the case of Japanese from originating from single region, Hiroshima, and one set of Japanese were residing in Hiroshima. Another set of Japanese were second generation migrants residing in Hawaii. And the third set, a second or third generation Japanese residing in California. When they, same genetic pool, same genetic background, but different diet and lifestyle because of the place where they are living. What they found was the heart disease death rate was drastically different, almost like 4 to 5 times the difference between Japan being the lowest, Hiroshima guys being the lowest, to Hawaii next, and California on the top of the band. Correlation between breast cancer and milk and meat intake. All the studies show that the countries where the milk and meat intake is the highest have the highest rates of breast cancer. And where this is the lowest, like Japan, where it is the lowest breast cancer percentage, rates are lowest. Finally, the most authoritative and comprehensive of them all, the China study. China study was done by Cornell University, Oxford University, and China Preventive Medicine Center. It was done across China in 1970s. 10,000 people were involved. The study continued for 10 years. And very, very detailed mapping was done of the people involved. They were followed through for 10 years on a yearly and monthly basis. Everything was measured. And they found, the generally, to our surprise, maybe surprised, the percentage of calories coming from animal products, meat, fish, eggs, etc. in their diet in the rural China was less than 0.8%. And all the protein they were getting from plants, and bulk of the nutrition, all the nutrition they were getting from plants, even though they were not non-vegetarians like our religion based, but simply because of various factors. It was, the modern dairy was not there, the meat industry was not there. It was simply not available, or available in such small quantity that they couldn't afford to eat most of the time. And all these chronic diseases were unheard of, totally unheard of. But as they moved towards cities and more affluent sections of the population, where the meat and dairy was available, and typically around 15-20% of their calories were coming from these proteins, meat and dairy proteins. Immediately, you had similar to US kind of ratios when it comes to chronic diseases. So it clearly clinched the deal in favor of plant-based diet. It clearly showed that a whole food plant-based diet is the best diet for ensuring chronic diseases do not set in at all. And of course, then the lab experiments. Some of these lab experiments were done by the Indian scientists and then extensively reproduced by Dr. Colin Campbell of the China study fame, where they said they had 2 sets of rats. Both were given aflatoxin, a cancer-causing carcinogen of the same proportions, same quantity, but they were given different kinds of diets. One set of rats were given a diet consisting of 5% casein. Casein is a protein derived from milk. And another set of rats, a diet consisting of 20% casein, which is, again, casein is a protein derived from milk. What they found is every one of the diets, without exception, which were on 20% casein diet, developed cancer, and 0% of the rats, which were on 5% casein diet, developed cancer. So, they were found casein was really acting as the fuel in the fire. The cancer cells were there because they had injected aflatoxin into the rats. Cancer cells were created, but cancer cells multiplication happened only when casein was given to them in about 10% ratio. Typically, for us, our ratio of animal protein ranges anywhere from 10-15% to 20-30% in a modern diet. There's also, trials which were conducted by Dean Ornish, another doctor, on the role of diet lifestyle in cancer, heart disease, and even aging, where he has, where he did a similar study with people, with two groups of people, one group on regular traditional diet and another group on pure plant-based diet. And you could see drastic differences in the cancer development. Even when their blood was taken and cancer cells were, injected or put into those blood cultures, they found they simply were not growing, but were killing themselves in the plant-based guys' drugs, whereas they were rapidly growing in the blood of the people who were on animal diet, animal foods diet. There's also a path-breaking work by Michael Greger, which is very important because there's a huge misconception that carbohydrates cause diabetes. You should not eat fruits, sweet fruits. You should not eat rice, and those are causing diabetes. Michael Greger has conclusively proven, with very detailed explanation and all the trials, clinical trials with his patients, as well as laboratory trials, that it is the fat, the saturated fat and the trans fats which cause diabetes and not the carbohydrates. Of course, the refined carbohydrates like the white rice, maida do play a role. But the biggest role comes from the fats derived from animal products, including milk, eggs, and meat, and trans fats derived from oils. So fats are the actual ones which are triggering and not the carbohydrates. And of course, in India itself, you have Sharon India under Dr. Nandita Shah, who has done phenomenal work in this space, both in terms of spreading the message as well as actual treatment and reversal of many of these chronic diseases, including diabetes and cancer, heart disease, etc. Also by Dr. Bishwarup Roy Chowdhury, Daryl D'Souza from Goa, Oja's Life in Maharashtra, and there are many others who have done path-breaking work in both preventing and reversing chronic diseases purely by using diet, and mainly a whole food plant-based diet. Of course, there are variations. Some of them, like Dr. Bishwarup Chowdhury or Oja's Life, primarily argue for a raw food diet, whereas some of the others, argue for a mix of raw food as well as cooked food, but whole food, always whole food diet, whole food plant-based diet. While the link between cancer and animal protein as well as processed foods is beyond an iota of doubt, the same is the case on the link between heart disease, diabetes on one side, and saturated fat and processed foods on the other side. Clearly, you may say, then what about chemicals? Chemicals do cause the cancer cells to be created, but it is a diet which enables those cancer cells to multiply. So it's a combination of chemicals and diet which actually finally causes you cancer. We can not only prevent onset of chronic diseases by changing our diet, but even reverse most of the chronic diseases by simply changing a diet away from animal-based foods, processed foods, oils, sugars, to a whole food plant-based diet. And also, interestingly, diabetes is the fastest to respond to such reversal, with cure happening with as little as 3 days to a maximum of 21 days. In fact, in Dr. Bishwarup Roy Chowdhury's recommended diet, he demonstrates, he takes patients also, that 100% of the type 2 diabetes cases, in 3 days, the reversal will happen. Blood sugar will come to normal. And these Sharon India, have this 21-day program where within the 21 days, almost everybody's sugar, especially type 2 diabetes, comes to normal. To know more about this topic, you can check my blog again. I've given the blog at the bottom on the role of diet in chronic diseases. Yeah, you can move on, Prashant. Prashant, hello. Yeah. So no, one slide behind. You have jumped one slide. Yeah. So chronic disease and chemicals. So I talked about diet in terms of food. And now we'll come to chemicals. Food we consume contains a lot of highly toxic chemicals. Toxic chemicals are used at every stage of the life cycle of our food chain, from growing to processing to storing to packaging. At every stage, chemicals are used, whether it's fertilizers, pesticides, weedicides while growing, or things like preservatives, stabilizers while preserving, or ripening agents, coloring agents, again while processing. So there are chemicals at every single stage. And you may be shocked to know that many of these chemicals are not even tested because there are simply too many chemicals. I'm saying not just in India, but even in the US and Europe, not all chemicals are tested. Because testing is such an expensive process, and it's impossible to test for every single chemical because there's simply too many chemicals. Only when many reported cases start coming up and something is suspected to be carcinogenic, etc., after many years of usage, they get into testing many of these newer chemicals. And many chemicals are neurotoxic, which means they can cause neurological or brain injury, and carcinogenic, which means they can cause cancer. Toxic chemicals have now become ubiquitous, present everywhere in the food we eat, air we breathe, water we drink, and even mother's milk is found to contain toxic chemicals. Of course, we have to understand that a cabbage or a carrot or a tomato or a brinjal produced by chemical farming may look just like any other fruit or vegetable produced by organic farming or natural farming. In fact, it may look better sometimes. The colors will be better, the size will be better, it will not have all those blemishes, the small holes of the worms eating or the insects biting, etc., because they have been protected from all of these through multiple rounds of sprays. But be assured that this food only looks good. It lacks both the nutritional components, the natural nutrients which are present in them, as well as the medicinal properties. Most of these are destroyed. It only something which looks nice, but with very little real, either medicinal or nutritional content. So chemicals in food and chemicals in pharma. So because we get these diseases from these chemicals in food, we are given now drugs, which are again chemicals of another kind. Okay, it's a symbiotically reciprocal relationship where one reinforces the other and destroys our health and well-being. So obviously, it's no surprise that Monsanto, the largest source of these toxic chemicals and genetically modified organisms in agriculture, is now owned by Bayer, the largest pharma company in the world. A perfect synergy, a perfect marriage. Here, I just want to cover a little bit in detail about one of those toxic chemicals called glyphosate. It's a weed killer, which is extensively used. Why I'm saying this is many times in the farmer markets, when I'm there, people come to buy from us. And when they look at black pepper or coffee, they say, oh, no, that I was in Sakleshpur last week. I was in Coorg last month. I bought that from Coorg, or I bought that from Chikmagalur, or bought that from Sakleshpur. Then if you ask them, is it organically produced? Said, no, I don't think so, but I don't know. See, the thing people don't realize is these places are literally drenched with weedicides, the specific weedicide, the glyphosate. Glyphosate is considered today the deadliest of all the pesticides around, one of the deadliest of all the pesticides around. Why? Two reasons. One, it's a water-soluble toxin. Many toxins are fat-soluble, which means body sequesters them in your fat cells for a safety point of view. If it cannot eliminate them, the body will try to store them in fat cells. Of course, when they reach a certain proportion, they can create problem in your body, but at least to some extent, body is safeguarding itself by storing them in fat cells. But when it's a water-soluble chemical, what happens is it just mixes with your blood. mixes with your body fluids, and completely flows everywhere into your body. Okay, that is where the real danger comes from of glyphosate. Three ways it harms us. One is the way it works is it blocks what is known as a shikimate pathway, which is essentially a pathway which is used by bacteria in plants to make essential amino acids. Now, these essential amino acids are the building blocks of a protein. Our body proteins are the most essential nutrient. Now, proteins are built using amino acids. Now, there are 9 amino acids which are considered essential amino acids. Without them, our entire protein structure, the entire foundation gets destabilized. Now, these 9 amino acids cannot be made by our body. There are certain amino acids which are made by our body, but these 9 essential amino acids are we have to get only from our diet, and only source of diet is plants. There's nowhere else you can get these amino acids from. The plants are the only source of these amino acids. And when glyphosate blocks the ability of the plants to produce these essential amino acids, essentially, when you eat those plants, you will not get what is required for your protein structure and for your foundation for a healthy body. Second way glyphosate affects is once it goes inside and mixes with our blood and mixes with our body fluids, it damages our gut lining, which is very, very critical. Gut lining is the one which prevents the toxins from leaking through into rest of the body. It allows only the nutrients to go through and blocks the toxins from going through. It ruptures the gut lining and creates a leaky gut syndrome. Okay? It affects the blood vessels, it damages the kidney tubes, and most important of all, it damages or harms your blood-brain barrier. That's the most sacrosanct of the barriers, because that is the barrier which prevents the toxins from entering your brain. Because once they enter your brain, you're opening yourself up to all kinds of neurological injuries, whether it is autoimmune disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all of that. That is why rapid rise of these brain-related diseases like autoimmune, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, etc. in the US coincide with a rapid rise in the usage of glyphosate. It also, 1 minute, if you can please go back. It also disrupts, the last point, intercellular communication. Your intercellular communication happens through biocurrents which are flowing in your body. It happens through a junction called gap junction. By damaging that junction, it damages the intercellular communication. Now, that is the basic necessity for cell-to-cell communication. What happens is when a cancer cell is born, typically your healthy cells, your stem cells, send a signal through this intercellular communication, through these biocurrents, for that cell to be repaired. In most cases, that repair happens. But if the repair doesn't happen, it sends a signal for that cell to destroy itself. Apoptosis is the process called self-destruction or suicide the cell commits in the interest of the body. Now, once the intercellular communication is disrupted, this doesn't happen. And the cancer cells start multiplying. Instead of destroying themselves, they start multiplying. Again, to know more about glyphosate, there's a specific blog on this, very detailed I have covered. You can refer to that. Yes, you can move on, Prashant. Okay. So all the evidence based on decades of global independent scientific research and big picture correlations points to a single fact, that all modern lifestyle diseases, be it cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and so on, are very strongly correlated and linked to modern diet rich in animal foods, saturated fats, coupled with highly toxic chemicals. Yeah. So we have covered the why part of it. Now we'll move on to how do we practice WFPB? How do we progress in that? So first thing I thought is, many of you may have some of these doubts. If animal foods and milk are so bad, why don't we hear of this more often? Why don't we hear of it in the mainstream? Why is it only some fringe guys are talking about it? Does WFPB provide adequate protein and other nutrients? What about milk, especially A2 milk? Everybody says A2 milk is good, etc. Why not have A2 milk? I'm told that excess carbs are bad and cause obesity and diabetes. Is that the case? Aren't fats and oils, especially cold-pressed oils, needed and good for us? Somebody was telling me today, that oil is required for lubricating our joints, as if the joints are some kind of a machine, it's a car or a machine that you have in your body where you put some grease or oil to lubricate the joints. But anyhow, that's a valid question. Do we need to take supplements? If you move to this diet, what kind of supplements we need to take? How can, and last, but the most important question, can food be tasty at all without oil? Can, without a traditional preparations, all that, can it be tasty at all? What about variety? And where are the recipes? Even if I choose, I want to do all of that, are recipes available? Where are the recipes? Before I go into it, I want to lay down the principle that we will use. I mean, there are a lot of detailed scientific research. I will not go detail into this in this presentation. If any of you are interested, I have blogs on each of these questions. Each of these topics have separate blogs where I've gone into the scientific details in great amount of depth. You can refer to that. But here I will use a simple principle, because ultimately I think we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to look at nature. Nature is the ultimate perfection that's available out there. It is something which is evolved out of millions and millions of years of evolution. The natural systems are perfected. I mean, we can never ever aspire to even come close to the natural systems in anything. Even a spider's web, we cannot try and recreate. But what we try and do is try and learn from nature, how nature works and what the message nature is giving. When we have a question, when we have a doubt, look towards nature and try to find the answers. 99% of the cases, you will find the answers in nature. That is what we'll try to do as we address each of these questions. Yeah. Move on now. Yeah. Clearing some. The first thing is I want to, this thing, why don't we hear this message in the mainstream? Why is it only the fringe is talking about it? Unfortunately, we today live in a world where normal has become highly abnormal and abnormal has become highly normal. Everything has become topsy-turvy, upside down. What is right for our health, right for our environment, right for our society, for our family, is all considered wrong. And what is totally wrong is considered the best way to do it. Why has it happened? It's not some, by some mistake it has happened, or by itself it has happened, or by some fluke it has happened. There are powerful business lobbies behind it who are driven by extreme greed and never-ending thirst for growth and profits at any cost. So it may mean destroying our health, destroying a society, destroying our environment, destroying our future, doesn't matter. But they control, unfortunately, the mainstream media. It's no longer just through ad revenues, but they directly control. Today, almost every mainstream media is owned by a mega corporate house. In India, I don't know how many of you are aware, around 60% of our TV channels owned by one single individual. Social media is controlled by these guys. I mean, may not be those business guys, but another set of business giants like Facebook, Google, who have equally their own vested interest. Academia, unfortunately, academia and science are no longer in the pure space because there's no longer any public funding or government funding coming, including all over the world as well as in India. The governments have been cutting the funding more and more and more year by year, and they have to depend on private funding. And private funding comes from vested interest with strings, with conditions. Okay, and all this messaging, including from governments and official sources, we're brainwashed into believing, what is good for them. Thus, we are taught from childhood that milk is good for us. Without milk, we cannot get our calcium. That, only animal products can provide the protein required. That's the best protein. Vegetarians may believe it comes from milk, but non-vegetarians may believe it comes from meat. But essentially, it has to come from the animals. That is the message we are given. Same thing with calcium, which is so false, so incorrect scientifically, and all data is there, but simply it is hushed up and not shared with us. Even science, as I said, is no longer free, as the funding is mostly controlled by vested interest. When it comes to health and nutrition, it's the big pharma and meat and dairy industries that rule the roost. Prevention and real cure is not in their interest. I mean, if you follow WFPB diet and reverse your diabetes, what is there to be gained for a pharma company? Or for, let's say, a big guy involved in running some health chains or gyms or whatever. It's a very simple in-house remedy available. So their interest is to keep the thing going, increase it so that you get hooked on lifelong, then more people get hooked on. It's a never-ending, captive, open-ended market. Who doesn't want that kind of a market? So wrong food, toxic medicines, creating a lifelong dependence, lifelong disease, excellent expanding market. Why would they give it up? So despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary, the society as a whole becoming sicker by the day, talk of going back to what is simple and natural remedy is laughed at, ridiculed, and simply silenced. I mean, this point, I just want to spend a few seconds on it. Society becoming sicker. With all the modern medicine, with all the modern technology, we should have become a healthier and healthier society. Just look around you. Number of hospitals increasing by leaps and bounds. Number of pharma companies, leaps and bounds. Anybody who is into stock market knows that one of the safest stocks to bet on are pharma companies because their profits continuously keep increasing. Same thing with the hospitals. Tell me one hospital which has gone bankrupt because they have not got patients. A very small street side hospital to a multi-speciality corporate hospital. Any number of them may open. Everybody has never-ending queue of patients. There's only shortage of beds. There's never an excess of beds. Why is it so? Why is it that sicknesses are spreading more and more and we're becoming more and more sicker society? That is what we need to ask when we ask this question, mainstream versus fringe. Yes, move on, please. Protein. See, there's a lot of talk of protein. Today, even many of my good vegetarian friends, who are hardcore vegetarians by religion, have started taking eggs. They call themselves vegetarians because of that mistaken belief that they cannot get protein without eggs, that eggs are essential to get protein. Again, I just want to ask you to look at nature. Ask two simple questions. Where does an elephant, currently the strongest animal on our planet, get its protein from? Does it take supplements? Or does it eat the meat of another animal? Where does it get its protein from? Where do all the carnivores get their protein from? It is a lion or tiger or a cheetah or a wolf. Obviously, you will say from other animals. But where do those other animals get their protein from? Answer is plants. All protein and all nutrients, the base source, the original source is plants. There is no nutrient which is not available in plants. Animals, when it goes to and when you ingest from the animals, it's a second hand ingestion, so efficiency suffers. You are getting a second hand of those proteins. So every nutrient, the original source is plants. Now let's look at some facts. Protein we need is around 4 to 5% of the calories. This is considered an estimated average requirement to 8 to 10% of the calories, which is recommended daily allowance. Now, some of you are confused between the two. What it means is RDA takes into account, the people above the 50% category, which means people who do a lot of strenuous physical activity, either athletes or people who are into manual work, very hard physical work, or who do, regular trekkers, who do very, very extreme kind of exercise, etc., where the protein requirement is higher. Taking all of them into account, you arrive at the RDA, so that 98% of the people are covered by RDA. EAR is the average, is the mid-level. So where most of us fit into the EAR, given our activity level, etc., 4 to 5%. But highest is 8 to 10%. In any whole food plant-based diet, automatically it's in the 8 to 10% range, as long as we take diverse diet, not just one type of vegetable continuously or white rice, which is not whole food plant-based diet, which is it's a refined rice that you're taking. But if you stick to a whole food plant-based diet, automatically you will move into that range without any issue. And interestingly, studies show that when the protein exceeds 10% of the calories, it even affects your athletic performance. It brings down the athletic performance. Yale University did a study where they found when they decreased the protein intake for their athletes from around 15 to 18% to around 8 to 10%, the athletic performance jumped by 35%. So excess protein doesn't help in any way. And again, another way of nature telling us, mother's milk, the only source of protein for a baby during the growth years, typically, ideally, ancient times, up to 3 to 4 years, when the baby is growing rapidly and the bone formation is happening and the tissue formation is happening, is only around 5% protein in a mother's milk. And excess protein, we do not use it, we eliminate in our urine. It can be ascertained by checking the nitrogen in our urine because it converts to nitrogen when it excretes it. But That process of elimination stresses the liver, kidneys, as well as the bones and weakens them. But some people may tell you that animal protein is more efficient. Egg protein, albumin is more efficient. Casein is more efficient. Yes, it is true. It is more efficient because that protein is similar to our protein. We are also animals. They are also animals. So the similarity is there in terms of the structure of the protein, the chemical structure of the protein. But it is precisely this efficiency that also fuels the growth of cancer cells, because cancer cells require rapid multiplication of the cells. It is precisely this efficiency of those animal protein that acts as a fuel for the growth of cancer once it is formed by intake of chemicals. The cancer cells are formed. And it stimulates production of a hormone called IGF, which is insulin-like growth factor. It's a hormone which is very strongly and definitively linked to cancer growth rates. Faster growth rate also triggers earlier menarche in women, which means higher estrogen levels. Many of you may be knowing that estrogen levels are linked to breast cancer. Higher the estrogen levels, greater are the chances of breast cancer. Animals are shot full of steroids and growth hormones today, especially poultry. And even cows nowadays, in the feed, they are giving them the growth hormones. Even in many of the villages, they're giving this feed because they want the cows to give more milk. They may not be sending them to slaughter, but they want them to give more milk. With that desire, they feed them all these feeds, which have growth hormones and steroids. When you drink milk from those cows, eat eggs from those chicken, or eat their meat, we also end up, taking in all those growth hormones and steroids, which stimulate faster body growth as well as cancer and acne growth. And coming to supplements, many people today who have moved to this diet or vegan diet, they are into the habit of taking protein supplements. They think they can take a soy protein supplement and that is required, that is essential. But remember one thing, as I said in the beginning, when you take a supplement, it's processing a whole food. When you do that, you're converting a whole food into a drug. Isolated soy protein in studies has actually shown that it increases IGF-1. IGF is insulin-like growth factor, the cancer-causing hormone. It increases it more than dairy protein. When it is isolated soy protein, mind you, I want to make this clear, because based on this study, there is a misconception, deliberate misunderstanding, which is being promoted that soybeans cause this. Soybeans don't cause this. When you eat soybeans as a whole, when you drink soya milk, or take the whole soybeans and use them, but please don't use the genetically modified soybeans. Bulk of the soybeans available today, which are imported, are GM soybeans, not those. Locally grown soybeans today are not GM soybeans, and those when you take, it doesn't cause this. But when you extract only the protein from the soybeans, it causes increase of IGF-1 more than dairy protein. Yeah, again, to know more about protein myths and facts, I've covered in detail in my blog. You can refer to that. Yeah, move on. Okay. Milk, very, very important point again. Just look at nature. Forget every scientific research. Just look at nature. Humans are the only species on earth. Tell me one other species that drinks milk as an adult or drinks milk of another species. Which species will drink milk from another species? Or which species drink milk as an adult? Okay. Second, when is milk produced in any mother, human mother, cow mother, or any mother? Only when it gives birth to a new child. And only for the duration the child requires that milk. Only for that duration, the milk is produced in a mother. So nature is clearly, conclusively telling us that milk is designed for only one purpose, to meet the growth requirements of a newborn. And the growth requirements of a newborn are not same across species. They're specific to a species. The milk of a species is meant for the growth requirements of that species. I mean, this is common sense. You tell me, how long does a human child take to walk? Anywhere from 10 months to 1.5 years. How long does a calf take to walk? It's half an hour, sometimes 20 minutes, maximum 1 hour. It has to start standing up and walking. Why is it so? Because all these were animals which were in the wild. If it cannot do that, if it cannot keep pace with his mother within hours of getting born, then it will become prey to some predator. So nature has created them in such a way that they have to do this. But to do this, they require massive and rapid bone formation, muscle formation to happen. And the milk of a cow is supposed to aid that kind of muscle formation and bone formation in a calf. So the growth requirements of a calf are totally different from the growth requirements of a human. So it's no surprise when you look at the scientific fact. Now here, whether it's A1 milk or A2 milk, this fact doesn't change. A nutty cow doesn't produce milk for our consumption. It produces milk again only for its calf and meant for its calf, which we are taking and using. It's a different story. So whether it's A1 or A2, this basic fact doesn't change. Of course, A1 milk may have additional harmful effects. That is definite. A1 milk will have additional harmful effects. But this basic fact that milk per se is not something suitable for any adult, or milk of another species is not suitable for another species, is a fact which is absolutely true. And all these scientific facts only go on to prove that today milk protein, which is casein, is considered the most potent carcinogen. They have found increase of cancer cells is the fastest link to the milk intake or the milk protein. Same thing with autoimmune diseases. Cow's milk has 3 times more protein than human milk, 50% more fat, and as I said, it's designed to grow a calf from 60 to 400 pounds within a span of 1.5 years. Again, calcium in cow's milk is bonded to the protein casein, and it cannot be unbonded without the action of 2 digestive enzymes, rennin and lactase. And after the age of 4, we no longer produce these enzymes. Why? Because we're no longer supposed to drink milk. So we no longer produce the enzyme. So none of us can really absorb the calcium in cow's milk because of this situation. But, to eliminate that calcium now, body gets into a very acidic mode. And to neutralize that acidity, it requires calcium. And what happens is it draws calcium from your bones, the soft portions of the bones, the joints of the bones, to actually use it in order to neutralize this acidity, which has been created in the body. So in the process, weakening your bones instead of strengthening your bones. That is why osteoporosis is the highest in countries with the highest per capita consumption of milk, and vice versa. Countries like Japan with the lowest per capita consumption of milk have the lowest bone fractures and osteoporosis. Again, the fat facts, butter 100% fat, etc., etc. It is there. Another very important factor for women, especially ovarian cancer as well as your breast cancer, is strongly linked to the level of estrogen in you, estrogen hormone. Now, of course, one is your reproductive cycles produce estrogen. The more the reproductive cycles, and earlier the coming of age, and later the menopause, fewer the children, lesser the milk feeding to the child, greater is the estrogen exposure. But apart from that, 80% of our external estrogen intake exposure comes from cow's milk. Cow's milk is the main source, number one source of external environmental estrogen exposure. So strongly linked again to breast cancer, ovarian cancer, PCOS, and other hormonally controlled diseases. It also contains 6 times more insulin-like growth factor, which is again strongly linked to cancer compared to human milk. Again, which I talked about, all the toxins, whether it's pesticides, heavy metals, which the cow ingests. You see the cows grazing around on the streets, everywhere, even in the farms. They may be going out there and eating grass which has been sprayed on. Glyphosate has been sprayed on that grass, or where pesticides have been sprayed on, or the water from the neighboring farm has washed over those grasslands. And when it eats that grass, it takes in those toxins. Those toxins, not glyphosate, but other toxins, go and settle in its milk because they're fat-soluble toxins. They reside, the body keeps, not only for humans, but also all animals. The body stores them in the fat cells. As milk has a lot of fat cells, that is where it is stored. And we end up getting those also as a bonus. When we consume cow's milk, as I said, how the acidity happens in our body and weakens our bones. So on milk, again, I have a 2-part blog series, very detailed covered. I've not covered things like more detailed on in ancient times we used to drink milk. How do you explain that? Do children need protein more? All those questions I've covered in my blog. On protein, there is a two-part blog. On milk, there's a two-part blog. I encourage you to go and read those blogs for more details. Yeah, Prashant, you can move on. Do carbs cause diabetes? Again, nature provides the answer. Most plant-based whole foods, be it fruits, veggies, grains, pulses, constitute 80% carbs. They are all 80% carbs and have been consumed by humans and animals for thousands of years. But has diabetes been there? Has obesity been there all these times? These are recent phenomena. This recently have been increasing. Okay. There are, just to explain to you a few facts about carbs, there are three types, sugar, starch, and fiber. They can be simple or complex. Difference is simple carbs are digested very quickly, like the carbs in the fruits are simple carbs. Immediately they digest and give you energy. Complex carbs are digested slowly and release energy slowly. Things like your ragi, red rice, millets, are pulses, are complex carbs. Carbohydrates, ultimately, they all metabolize into sugars and used as the energy source by our body. And fiber, extremely essential for intestinal health, for your gut health. They are food for the gut bacteria. Also, see, the difference is when you take it, when you're taking white rice and unpolished red rice, is that when you take in with the fiber, body controls the absorption of sugars. The fibers controls the absorption of sugars. Fibers control absorption of cholesterol. So they play a very, very important role. And they play a very important role in ensuring a healthy gut bacterial composition, which is the foundation for your health. Today, in agriculture, the microbiome in the soil is the foundation for soil health. Similarly, for humans, gut microbiome or the bacteria in your gut is the foundation for your health. And for that, fiber is essential. And only you can get fiber from eating whole plants, not processed plants. When you eat maida, when you eat white rice, zero fiber you get. It's only carbs which directly convert into sugar, what you're getting. What then causes obesity and diabetes? Real culprit is the fat, especially saturated fat, trans fats, found mostly in animal foods and processed foods, which include oils. It is fat buildup in the muscle cells that causes insulin resistance and inability to absorb sugar in the blood. Dr. Greger has explained it very beautifully. I've covered it in detail in my blog on diabetes. You can refer to that blog for more details. But refined carbs do contribute to both obesity and diabetes when clubbed with the rest of the fat. Refined carbohydrates are not natural carbohydrates. They do not exist in nature. There is no natural uh, plant product which has refined carbohydrates. They are only produced by human intervention, where we take out the fiber from whole carbohydrate, from the whole food, and end up with only the remaining parts of the carbohydrate. They raise insulin levels, promote obesity, etc. when clubbed with fats. But the carbs have the opposite effect. Okay. Japan, amongst the countries consuming the highest carbohydrates, has the lowest diabetes rates in the world. In fact, when you move to a whole food plant-based diet, automatically your blood sugar levels will keep dropping. In fact, if you drastically move, you will have to do a daily basis check and accordingly control your insulin intake. Otherwise, your blood sugar can drop drastically low and even can lead to death, because as it is, it will fall and insulin will make it fall further. It can be dangerous. Yeah, we can move on, Prashant. What about fats and oils? Look at nature again. Are oils naturally occurring food? Fats are naturally occurring. Oils are not naturally occurring. Again, fats are not naturally occurring on a standalone basis. They don't exist independently in nature. They exist as part of some whole food. Oils are actually part of whole foods, like I said, coconut, groundnut, etc. When you extract oil from the whole food, you're converting a multi-nutrient whole food into a predominantly single nutrient food, which is primarily a fat-based food. Fat, when consumed as whole food, like a whole avocado, whole coconut, whole nuts, whether it's badam or pista or cashew nut or whatever whole nut, is naturally occurring and comes along with multitude of other nutrients, also fiber, vitamins, and multiple other nutrients, and is hence absorbed and used by a body without any adverse effect. But when fat is extracted from the whole food and consumed on a standalone basis, either as oil or as supplements like the soy protein supplement, or your the omega-3 supplements, etc., which can be harmful or detrimental to our health. Again, coming to some facts about fats. Animal fats are predominantly saturated. Plant fats are predominantly unsaturated. There are exceptions. Few plant fats like coconut fat, avocado fat is saturated fat, but it's a good saturated fat from a plant source which is coming, as long as it is taken in a whole food. Trans fats do not exist in nature. They are not natural fats at all. They occur when hydrogen is artificially added to an unsaturated fatty acid derived from a plant, which is like a sunflower oil or a coke or a groundnut oil or any other such oils. When you are adding hydrogen in a laboratory and making it more saturated, this is done in all refined oils. That is why refined oils are extremely dangerous, because those fats do not exist in nature at all. Our body simply doesn't know how to handle them, and they can create havoc in our body. What is the source of these trans fats? See, many of you will say, oh, I don't have refined oil, so I don't get any trans fats. Not correct. You can get trans fats in cookies you eat. You may buy so-called, healthy cookies. I'm not saying homemade cookies, but let's say cookies which are available from supermarkets, or pastries, uh, donuts, biscuits, icing on the cakes, crackers, breakfast sandwiches, breakfast cereals, microwave popcorn. Many of these also have trans fats. So best to avoid all these sources. WFPB diet automatically provides around 8 to 10% of calories from fat. Similar about calories from protein. Now, somebody is asking, what about olive oil? No different. Eat olives, not olive oil. See, these are all fads which are created today in the internet era. Olive oil was a fad. Of course, now it is the past. Now the latest fad is coconut oil, because people sitting in Canada, I'm coming across, people sitting in the US want to consume coconut oil, because coconut oil is considered some kind of a magical this thing. Same thing was earlier with the olive oil. Whether it's olive oil, whether it's a coconut oil, once you extract oil from the whole food, then you're converting a food into a drug. You're converting a whole food into a single nutrient processed stuff. It's no longer healthy. It has only harmful effects. So if you want the good fats in the olive oil, eat the olives. But why we run after olives? Olives are not, unless you live in Europe. You live in Europe, please go ahead. Or in the, Mediterranean countries like your, even Lebanon and all these, some of the Middle Eastern countries where olives are grown, fine, perfectly, very good. But if you live in India, in the coastal areas, coconut oil provides you similar good fats. There are other things, other oils. It's not coconut oil. I'm sorry. Coconut provides you that. Groundnuts provide you that. So go after what is locally available, but whole foods. I want to keep underlining this: whole foods, not extracted ingredients, not extracted substances. So any kind of oil, whether it's even flaxseed oil, again, flaxseed oil is considered very good because omega-3. But eat flax seeds. Take the whole flax seeds, soak them, powder them, and eat them. Put them in your chutneys. Put them in wherever, in the dosas. Put them in the ragi laddus you make. Add flax seeds to it. They're very good. They'll give you those omega-3 fatty acids. But don't take the flaxseed oil. Any oils, once you convert, is the same result. So don't need to look for A or B or C. It's the same thing. Yeah, Prashant, you can move on. Supplements. Supplements have now become a big fad. I mean, if you go to some of these Western returned guys, or the upmarket guys who are very much savvy with all these new health trends and all that, you will find go to the house, some 10, 20 different supplement bottles sitting there. protein supplement, vitamin A supplement, this supplement, that supplement, a series of supplements. What has been shown is studies show that they cause more harm than good in most cases. So isolated soy protein, I gave an example, how it increases IGF-1 even more than dairy protein. Similarly, omega-3 supplements, when given as supplements, have been found to actually increase cancer and type 2 diabetes in the studies, randomized access control studies. The table here I have provided the split up of different nutrients and what percentage, how much of these are there in the plant-based foods and animal-based food. In this example, this comes from the
Merwin,
West. Yes.
sorry, just a time check I wanted to give you. So if you
Yeah.
could get to the questions soon.
Okay. Let's move on. So this you can share with them this table maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So plant foods provide a variety of nutrients. B12, I will answer. Somebody has asked. That's an important question. B12 is one this vitamin today which you will not get from plants, and you will have to take the supplements. There is no option for that, simply because B12 is made by bacteria, and that bacteria we used to get earlier when we ate the fruits and vegetables from pristine soils where bacteria were plenty, where pesticides and weedicides were not sprayed, and we were not over hygienic. We ate fruits and vegetables which had fallen down just like that without 10 times washing with some amount of mud in them. So then those bacteria go into your gut, and that's how you get your natural B12. But that doesn't happen today practically. So B12 supplements is definitely recommended. D3, if you're really, don't get sunlight. If you're in a job where you're always inside the office, by the time you go home, it's late, mornings you start early, you simply don't get sunlight, then you will have the vitamin D deficiency, and D3 supplements also you need. Beyond that, nothing else that you need. Normal people, if you're outdoors, vitamin D you don't need, only B12 you need. Okay, preparing tasty, healthy dishes. Now, see, ultimately, taste is equated with oil. It is not at all so. We do all traditional dishes at home, and we do the tadka, just like you do the tadka. Only difference is we don't use oil in the tadka. So onion is fried just like you fry the onion, dry fried. When it starts turning little brown, it's very dry. You sprinkle a little water, you get splashing, you get this aroma. The mustard seeds can be popped, can be, same way. Everything you do, little bit of water you splash, not initially, but at a later stage, same aroma you will find in the dishes. In fact, we, in our farm stay, so far, we have had multiple guests, and not one of, because we don't tell them upfront that we don't use oil. And we ask them when they start eating, tell me what is the difference. Do you find something missing? Do you find something really missing in this food? Every one of them, nobody is able to identify that there's no oil in it, that you have not put tadka. We have put tadka, that you have not put the oil-based tadka. So, it is like this happened in the late 1990s. Every single year, the wine tasting competition, French wines used to win the top 3 prizes. So all these other guys, Chilean guys, South African guys, Argentinian guys, everybody got very upset. Australian guys, they said this is not done. So this is not fair. There's a prejudice, and that's why it's happening. So they changed one rule. What they did is all the same wine tasters, they did not change the wine tasters, the same guys, but now they're blindfolded. They're blindfolded and the wine is given to them. They have to taste and write down what they want about that wine. And they don't know, they're not told which country the wine is from. They're just given a wine, they taste and they write down. That year onwards, they found all the other guys were winning first, second, and third prizes. Very rarely, some French wines were winning. So, it is like that. The mental block is what is preventing us from discovering the taste is still there without oil-based tadka. And other is you will start discovering newer tastes, especially the real taste of the vegetables, which were drowned out because of too much of oil and too much of masala. As you reduce these, you will really start discovering newer tastes. Yeah, move on. Okay. Typical plan I've talked about. Breakfast, primarily have fruits for breakfast. Variety of fruits, 2 to 3 varieties per day. Go for what is available locally and what is seasonal. Don't go for imported fruits because they will have a lot of chemicals in them. Uh, Rough quantity guide, your weight into 10. If you're 50 kg into 10, 500 grams. If you're 60 kg, 60 into 10, 600 grams. Approximately, don't have to follow hard and fast. That's a rough guide. Green smoothies are also fine, where you have greens like palak, etc., plus banana, dates. You can make a smoothie and drink. Uh, Make sure the greens are organic and make sure they're coarse ground. You should not gulp down the smoothie because lot of nutrients are extracted in your mouth by the bacteria lying in your mouth. So important to chew. So make sure it's very, very coarse smoothie that you're forced to chew in your mouth before swallowing. Avoid juices because juice converts directly into sugar. When you drink orange juice versus eat an orange, that's the difference. Consume with the fiber. Don't consume juices which has sieved and consume. Uh, if required, supplement with some light cooked food, like your idlis or dosas or pundi, but made without oil, and some herbal tea, etc. Lunch: one large bowl of raw vegetable salad with oilless dressing. There are plenty of recipes for oilless dressings. Very good dressings are available in the which you can make at home yourself, or you can make raw vegetable chutneys. You can make chutneys from palak, rich gourd, beetroot. Many other chutneys can be made, and you can make them tasty easily. You can add sprouts to the chutneys. You can add spices like ginger. You can add various other spices to make them tasty chutneys. Just like you make anything else in cooking, you decide on the taste as long as you don't add oil. And add to that simple cooked food consisting of whole grains, pulses. Make sure at least one variety of pulse per day you eat, at least in one of the meals, and some whole grain, rice, ragi, whatever, and variety of vegetables. At least 2 to 3 vegetables every day. And make sure your vegetable quantity is at least 50% of the portion. Vegetable and pulse quantity should be totally around 60 to 70%, with the rice being the remaining 30 to 40%. Bulk of it should be vegetables and pulses. And if you require, if you have a sweet tooth, go for some homemade simple sweets made with the jaggery, dates, and you can easily make them. See, the mistake people make is, for example, you can use coconut milk, then you don't need any of the other things in your payasa, etc. You don't need ghee, any of those things. Beautiful payasa comes with coconut milk. But let's say if you're making laddus, ragi laddus, people say I can't make, the binding doesn't happen. That is because you use vona kobari, the dry coconut. Don't use dry coconut. Use the coconut with the water in it, with just the grated coconut, fresh grated coconut. It has enough oil content in it, the fat content in it, and it will perfectly bind. And if you add some flaxseed to it, the flax seeds also release oil content. It binds beautifully. Same thing with the roasted cocoa beans. Some of the farmers are selling roasted cocoa beans, organic ones. You can add them into your ragi laddus. Works out beautifully. Evening, go for some herbal tea, roasted nuts, different nuts, and early supper, preferably around 7 p.m. Definitely don't eat anything after 8 p.m. You can have a vegetable soup or boiled steamed vegetables, salad, or simple cooked food like in the afternoon. But try to make it early. So yeah, move on, Tushar. Move on, Tushar. Next. Yeah, foods to have: unpolished whole grains, pulses, variety of fruits and vegetables, greens and sprouts, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices. Preferably organic wherever possible. Why I'm saying is every single time you're traveling, you're forced to eat something, it's fine. Or once in a way, you're in lockdown, you're not able to buy organic foods, you get something chemical, but then avoid certain things like cauliflower, cabbage. Certain things are high pesticide content, apples, you avoid those. Okay. But as far as possible, have organic foods, herbal tea. Foods to eliminate, totally eliminate. Animal foods, anything originating from animals, totally eliminate. Refined oils, white sugar, iodized oils, totally eliminate. Sugary, salty, processed foods like Pepsi, Coke, chocolates, pastries, bakery snacks, packaged chips, etc. Totally eliminate. Food to minimize and avoid whenever possible. Polished, refined grains and pulses, sometimes unavoidable, you have them, but as far as possible, avoid them. Chemically grown fruits and veggies, as I said, avoid whenever possible. Added sweeteners, as far as possible, stay away from too much of jaggery also. Don't make jaggery into, jaggery is good, doesn't mean you can eat tons of jaggery. Avoid added sweetness too much. Keep it for bare minimum. Processed foods with chemical preservatives. So keep all processed foods like sauces, etc. away. Make your own sauces, whatever at home, or simple masalas and your own stuff, or buy from the organic homemade markets. Avoid also tea and coffee. Both tea and coffee are acidic. Coffee is even more acidic. So preferably, green tea, herbal tea. But if you can't avoid, at least minimize tea and coffee. Yeah, move on. Avoid drinking water with food. It affects your digestion and absorption of nutrients. Unless you're getting hiccups or something like that, avoid drinking water with food. Preferably 30 minutes before and 1.5 hours after meals. Keep the gap. Avoid drinking tea, coffee on an empty stomach, and reduce it to maximum 1 or 2 servings a day if you can't eliminate completely. Don't mix fruits with the cooked food. Never mix them because they ferment in your stomach and create acidity, bloating, etc. Keep a minimum gap of 45 minutes before or 2 hours after. So don't eat bananas immediately after. Even you go for thali, they give you bananas. Carry the bananas with you and eat afterwards. Don't eat them immediately. Always soak all the rules. This is a cardinal rule. Any seeds, grains, pulses, nuts, all of them are seeds. Any seed, unless you're powdering them, you soak them overnight preferably, but some of them at least 3 to 4 hours. And throw the soaked water because the toxins are released into the water. So throw the soaked water. And when powdering, it will not be required because toxins are released into the air. Avoid pressure cooking and repeated reheating as it destroys nutrients. And microwave, don't even keep in your house. Yeah, move on. Yeah. Some pointers: don't focus or worry about losing weight. You will lose weight. Don't worry about losing weight also. You will lose weight if you switch to this diet. So don't go for some charts and say I'm underweight, overweight, all that. Your body will automatically bring you to what is the right weight for your body constitution. Height is only one factor which we take into account and just look at. But height is not the only thing. Each body constitution is different. So body will determine what is best weight for you as long as you're in the right diet. But watch your energy levels. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Really pleasantly surprised. Very, very, very quickly you'll find them shooting up. Just make sure you continue to eat diverse diet. At least over a period of time. Every day you don't need to have too much diversity, but over a week, over a month, make sure you have diversity. Remember, colors give the antioxidants. More the colors, merrier, more the antioxidants. And when eating organic, try to eat the peel. Don't throw away the peel, whether from the fruits or vegetables. Don't remove the peel and eat. Eat with the peel, whether it's apples, guavas, or your carrots or whatever. If you really want to a luxurious transition, you can look at Sharon India's. They have a 3-week retreat. It's pretty expensive, but it's worth it. They take you into a resort and they put you totally on this diet. 3 weeks you spend there in house with them, and you will come out of that 3 weeks a totally new person. And if you have diabetes, etc., you'll be out of it by the end of this. Oja's Life has shorter retreats. I think around a week to 10 days, if I'm not mistaken. You can Google and check Oja's Life on Facebook. They have a group where they talk about these retreats, etc. You're always welcome to farm stay. Of course, we don't have 1 week, 3-week retreats. You can come and spend a couple of days with us as a guest. You can experience WFPB diet and have more detailed discussions. We are in Sakleshpura. And if you want to know more about my journey, you can look at my blog again, Transformation of a Hardcore Meat Eater. Yeah, move on. Yeah, these are some of the recipe links. I think Prashant can send these across, or you can write them down. Sharon India, their website.
I'll share these later. I'll share these on email with all the attendees.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay. So thanks, Merwin. That was a great session, and we have a lot of questions actually. So I'm just gonna take a few questions from people. I think one of the main thing was about ghee and how ghee is, generally said to be quite medicinal and good. So what can is ghee a part of this?
See, I suggest, because it will take some time to answer this, I won't go into detail. I suggest you go through my blog. Specifically, I've addressed this issue of ghee there. But let me tell you one thing. When you say ghee is medicinal, take it as a medicine, then it is okay. Medicine you have under doctor's recommendation, under specific, for specific conditions, for a specific period, in a specific quantity. But when you say ghee is good, and then you start frying things in ghee, you start roasting things in ghee, start adding ghee into everything, ghee is ultimately totally saturated fat, 100% saturated fat. So it will affect. In the past, when people talked about ghee, the quantity involved was very, very little, because we're talking about nati cows. They give very little milk, and that milk is distributed across large families. Very little ghee is produced. A lot of it is used for, ritual purposes, religious rituals, etc. What is left is in a small quantity, used occasionally for certain specific festivals, things like that, or for certain medicinal purposes. And then the lifestyle they led, then we should understand that also. They did not have washing machines, cars. They walked 20-30 kilometers every day, did a lot of physical work. So a saturated fat going in with that kind of physical activity and of a very small quantity is totally different from today our kind of lifestyle we lead, sitting back in most of the time sitting doing nothing, either watching Netflix or working from home on the computer and doing everything on the machines, and then taking ghee in every meal, buying ghee from outside. See, we have 7 nati cows. We have not been able to make any ghee so far because the milk is so little. We don't drink any milk. We don't use any milk. We leave it to the calf, rest little bit, workers take away. We allow them to do that. But even earlier, when we were drinking milk, we were not able to make ghee because the milk was so little. And how people sell tons of ghee, supposedly A to ghee, I really don't know. So be careful of these things. These things become fad, and we are responsible because we want lots of these things all the time. We want ghee everywhere, ghee. So that is the only thing I would ask you to watch out. If somebody go to a doctor and doctor tells you for a medicine specifically, you take this, this little bit of ghee for some time, go ahead and take.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions, just unmute yourself and ask the question. Meanwhile, I'll just go over some of the other questions that people have. If you do have a question, just like unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question. So someone's asking, how can you cook food without oil? Like, I mean, you talked about tadka, but like generally everything involves some amount of frying stuff. And so how do you fry without oil? I think it's a very valid question.
Yeah, you don't fry. You can use either air fryers. There are air fryers available. Some of you may be aware of air fryers today. You get them. You can also grill them. You can bake things. You can steam things. So there are multiple other ways. For example, samosas can be made by grilling them. You can make papads in the air fryer. So there are options available where without oil you can do. But if you want to do deep frying, there's no options. And deep frying is a strict no-no. Deep frying is something you will have to forgo. If you really are serious about health, deep frying is something you have to move out of. Whether it is deep fried at home or deep fried outside. Of course, deep fried outside is worse, but deep fried at home is also bad.
We're getting a lot of questions about yogurt. Generally, yogurt
So,
is again about yogurt.
yeah.
And yogurt is again one of those things that generally is seen to have a lot of life benefits. So how do we address that through this lens?
Yogurt is considered beneficial. Why? And we should ask the question why always. The principal reason why it is beneficial is because it has probiotic bacteria. And probiotic bacteria is supposed to be good for your gut so that it reinforces the bacterial population in your gut. Now, there are multiple ways in which you can have probiotic bacteria, either by making fermented vegetables, fermented vegetable drinks, things like kefir, things like kimchi, things like cultured vegetables, where in a simple way you ferment. These are all available on YouTube if you Google and check. Uh, these fermented vegetables can be prepared. Second is there are plant milks like the almond milk or soy milk, etc., which are also you can make curds out of. You can initially use the same starter from your existing milk curd, use to make curds in the almond milk or your soy milk or peanut milk, etc., and you can make curds out of them. So the casein part of the milk, which is harmful, doesn't go away if you're doing curds. It remains the same. It's still there. What only benefit you're getting is the probiotic bacteria, which any which way you can get by other curds, but you can also get the benefit of the good protein when you are taking soy curds or almond curds or whatever without any harmful effects. So you can get all the benefits of curd without losing anything, plus more through the alternatives.
Okay, we have probably going to just take last 2-3 questions and then we'll wrap it up.
Which
So one
salt
is,
do you prefer?
yeah, so this was one of the questions. Which salt should be is preferred to be consumed?
Preferably rock salt. Rock salt is definitely preferable. Sea salt is okay, natural, but problem today with the sea salt is so much of plastics we have thrown into the sea that every single examination of sea salt, it has been found it contains lots of microplastics. So sea salt is avoidable in today's situation because we have contaminated the seas. Rock salt is comparatively better, but in any case, minimize salt. Any salt, too much of salt is not good. But if you have, when you're having salt, sea salt, rock salt is the pink rock salt is the better one.
So anyone have a question? Go ahead. Kanchana, were you saying something? Okay. Okay, so this is one question I think which we had got during the registration. How do you transition from animal-based products to plant-based products? Like, and you especially being you were a non-vegetarian earlier, and then you switched to this. So how do you do that? Like, do you get cravings to go back to that? Like, was it an easy journey? What was your journey like?
My journey itself, I suggest to read my blog. I have a 5-part blog on my transition specifically, what led me to the transition, how I went through it, etc. But there is a phase, typically human habits, they say it's a 21-day window. If you can do something for 21 days consistently, then you get into a new habit. So there is a phase where the cravings will be there. But what I found practically is the cravings primarily are in the mind, not in the body. Because what I found is because I had those cravings, when I gave up after some time, I did eat, try to eat some of those things for which I had cravings, just to see how my body reacts. What I found was when I ate them, my body was just put off. I just no longer had the taste, was no longer enjoying it. I was not feeling good in the stomach. So, it is the mind which was telling, no, 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 that is lovely. That fish is very good. Or that, meat preparation, I love it. I've had it from before. I should have it, kind of. So that is primarily in the mind. And somebody is asking, natty eggs are good, or see, egg is an egg. Whether it's a natty egg or a broiler egg. Broiler egg is worse. But natty egg is also an egg. It contains same albumin, same the protein in any egg, whether natty or this thing is albumin. And albumin is considered one of the most potent carcinogens, along with casein. Casein is number one, and number two is albumin in promoting growth of IGF-1, the insulin-like growth factor, which is a cancer-related hormone, and in cell division of cancer cells. So please don't think that natty eggs are good just because chicken are grazing. See, what is eggs? Eggs are meant for hatching, preparing new life there. The same animal product, eating chicken, eating eggs is no different. Same protein you get there, same ill effects you get there.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for attending. Those who have signed up using your email IDs, we will send you an emailer about this session with like key points, takeaways. Maybe Merwin, if you want to share your presentation, we can do that also. And very soon, and I'm sure I don't know how many of you know Merwin, but his wife Regina actually is a fantastic WFPB cook, and like some of the recipes she does are really fantastic. So we'll try and make something happen. Maybe get some of her recipes to use to make it easier, because, like you said, Merwin, this diet is all about the recipes and how to do it. Yes, so this is going to be an ongoing session. Those who are interested, ongoing sort of series, and those who are interested in the diet, you can check out our emails. We will be doing an email series, and probably some on our social media as well. So give us a follow, give Merwin a follow. Savira Naturals is the Instagram handle and Facebook page. And thank you, everyone. If you have any more questions, I would say maybe you can write to us, or you can write to Merwin. You have his email ID there. You can write and get your answers. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. It was a great session. Thank you, Merwin. Thank you for conducting this.
Thanks, Prashant. Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.